Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me better now? How about now? Can you hear me?
We're all looking at the picture, Luke.
Oh, yes. I did that on the bus ride to Salem Boys and Girls Club, actually. That's the story for that logo. Yeah. That's me when I was a little kid, actually, I think. Mom, I hope you're happy. Yes. Good morning, everybody. If you're a little cold, you can always all come up to the front and conserve some body heat. I know I'm a little cold personally, but I hope to warm you guys up with my message today. So, yeah, like Anya said, I did leave for Korea. I traveled once again. I missed over a week of school, which meant the past few days have been extremely strenuous, making up a week's worth of work. But I managed to do it, and it was definitely worth it. I had an amazing trip, and I gained a lot, both internally and externally. 2020, we've talked about this for 7 years, 7 whole years, and it's finally here. And, Mother expressed that she was happy and that we've worked really hard. Do you guys think you've worked really hard?
Yes.
Some yeses, some nos. Well, give a round of applause to yourselves. Especially this past 2019, a lot has happened both locally, nationally, and globally. Locally we've had, Project Phoenix has really been kind of a staple of our community. And we've also had, nationally, we've had our Peace Starts With Me rallies. And then globally, we had the World Summit, where, thousands of world leaders, former, current heads of state, politicians, businessmen, scholars from around the world all came to Korea in Kintex for a World Summit, a week-long event. Not just, gathering and having all these committees. It wasn't as simple as that. The purpose of the World Summit, and this was public, was to, celebrate two parents' centenary and 60th anniversary of their wedding. And this book, this little booklet, it's not little actually, it's quite big, but this was distributed actually at the World Peace Center, outlining all of Chu Parent's achievements the past 7 years, from Foundation Day celebrations to Chu Mother's meeting in Senegal with President Macky Sall, to South Africa, to here in America with our clergy rally. All of it's detailed in here, and if you want to see for yourself what Chu Parent's achievements the past 7 years, I'll put this in the map room for you all to take a look at. I was actually kind of sad because after one of the events, there were just tons left there. And I was like, why? Come on, guys, this is so good. I mean, there's tons of pictures, it's in all 3 languages. It's in Korean, Japanese, and English. And it really just outlines what Chu Parents and Chu Mother have done these past 7 years. What have they actually achieved substantially? But how did this come about, right? We always ask the how, where's the source? Of course, Chu Mother has just been spearheading this effort, but this didn't just come through us. It didn't just come through human effort alone. It didn't just come through the physical world. In Korea, there is a frenzy over the coronavirus, and the coronavirus actually hit just a few days before the World Summit was about to begin in late January. And, people were really scared, People organizing the World Summit, they were very scared that, the World Summit, it might not be a success because, all these world leaders, the governments might not want them to come. Or these businessmen and politicians, it might not be worth it for them to come if there's the threat of this coronavirus. Especially for, a lot of countries in continents like Africa and Asia, people from those areas, a lot of the times you have to fly through China. And what Korea's doing is if you're traveling through China and you've been to China, you will be quarantined for 2 weeks. You will be quarantined. When I was there, it was a real thing. It's not just on the news. I got to see There were tons and tons of government advisories. They'd play after every single commercial break. That's the first ad that plays. In Seoul, there's tons of big, huge signs like warning about the coronavirus. Like, if you have a fever, do this, do that, report to the government. Or always wear a mask and always wash your hands. My mom actually gave me a mini lecture before I left, saying, at the airport, Luke, wash your hands constantly. Do not touch any door and wear your mask. It was quite a frenzy, But yet, despite all that, despite the threat of the coronavirus, despite the Korean government's stern crackdown on, making sure it doesn't become an epidemic, they have such a stern crackdown that at the hotel, there is only one way to enter and one way to leave. And in that entranceway, which is like a 3-foot wide thing, in the center there's a thermal temperature camera scanner of sorts. Wow. They scan your temperature every time you enter and leave the hotel. That's how serious it was. That's what all these people coming to the World Summit had to deal with, And yet, almost all of them came. Almost all of them came. I think Dr. Yoon said I forget, it was like 1,600 out of the 1,700 of the VIPs or whatever. I'm not sure if that's totally accurate. We have a lot of counting, there's various statistics, but the point is that most of them came, and it was able to be a hugely successful event. I would really encourage you actually, we always talk, oh no, another report, another long hour report. Oh no. But I would actually encourage you to listen and watch it on Eyepiece TV, because Dr. Yoon really goes, in depth, and he couldn't even share it all, but he goes in depth to what it took and what the feeling was organizing this event. And do you think that this was just because all these, former and current heads of state and all these businessmen and politicians were let's just go. I don't care about the corona. I'm just going to walk in Korea and go. If I have to travel through China, I'll find another way. Even if it takes, 2 days of travel, which actually happened to some people because they couldn't go through China. So they had to go a completely twisted route to Korea. Is this human effort alone? I mean, these are powerful people, right? I mean, do they necessarily want to go through all this trouble to go to another gathering of leaders for the sake of world peace, which I'm sure a lot of them have gone to several? This was Spirit World. I mean, there's no other answer. There is no other answer to stuff like this. It can't just be through human effort alone. True Mother says this constantly. I bet if you look it up on Google, you'll probably find True Mother. There's a limit to human effort. We need our Heavenly Parent. And that's how these miracles happened. They were miracles. It was a miracle in South Africa that, despite the heavy downpour of rain, all the hundreds of thousands of couples that were meant to get blessed in South Africa, they came. Then you had Prophet Radebe, who's the leader of the Revelation Church of God, a huge mega church. He has millions of followers. He was spearheading the effort, and he literally went up to the stands and told people, come on, come closer, even though that's where they would have gotten rained on. And people came closer. That was a miracle. Or what about, Senegal in 2018, the Africa Summit? True Mother went to Gorée Island, the place where tons and tons, countless of thousands, probably millions of slaves were kept and taken there. And True Mother went there and liberated all those spirits. Those are just a few examples of what's been happening. Or what about the miracle that, Kim Jong-un sent 2 bouquets of flowers and a written address congratulating True Parents on their centenary and their anniversary. Despite all the tensions, especially between the US and North Korea, there's still respect for True Parents in North Korea. All these various examples, and all of them are outlined in here. All these miracles, it's not just us. It's spirit world. And how did this come about? How did, in the course of 7 years, we were able to bring 9 world leaders, to True Mother's side? How did we do a clergy rally of 30,000 clergy? People like Noel Jones and Prophet Redebe. How did all this come together? It was spirit world. But, we have to start accepting spirit world ourselves first. The spirit world, the providence, and I. Peace starts with me. And, while outlining my sermon, something popped into my head. And it was probably the most fascinating section in the divine principle, or at least many would argue. It is, if this clicker can turn on, the history of the providence of restoration and I, in the Introduction to Restoration section. So let's read together. All of us, let's read together, because it's I, it's us. As an individual, each one of us is a product of the history of the providence of restoration. Hence, the person who is to accomplish the purpose of history is none other than I, myself. I must take up the cross of history and accept responsibility to fulfill its calling. To this end, I must fulfill in my lifetime, horizontally through my efforts, the indemnity conditions which have accumulated through the long course of the providence of restoration, vertically. Only by doing this can I stand proudly as the fruit of history, the one whom God has eagerly sought throughout his providence. In other words, I must restore, through indemnity during my own generation, all the unaccomplished missions of the past prophets and saints who were called in their time to carry the cross of restoration. Otherwise, I cannot become the individual who completes the purpose of providence of restoration. To become such a historical victor, I must understand clearly the heart of God. When he works with past prophets and saints, the original purpose for which God called them, and the details of the providential missions which he entrusted to them. The path which all saints must walk outside as they strove to fulfill God's providential will is the very path we must walk again today. Beyond that, we must continue on the end of the path, even walking trails they left untrodden. Therefore, fallen people can never find the path that leads to life without understanding the particulars of the providence of restoration. Herein lies the reason why we must study the providence of restoration in detail. Just take a moment to process that. It was about you, yourself. What is our role in these miracles? Can anyone take a guess? What was our responsibility? Tribal Messiahship. Tribal Messiahship. Dun dun dun. But it says it right here. I read this and I was so shocked that this first paragraph of this section really basically outlines what tribal messiahship is. What were we supposed to do? Fulfill my lifetime horizontally through my efforts, indemnity conditions that have accumulated through the long course of providence of restoration, vertically. Our horizontal responsibility, bless 430 couples, give them the blessing, and also give our ancestors vertically the blessing. I was so shocked by this, actually. I really was that in itself, that was not, me having this intellectual understanding of divine principle and figuring this out. That was, spirit world, that was God telling me this. Once again, spirit world, it wasn't just me. Of course I read it and, I did put maybe 2 and 2 together, but it wasn't all me. Tribal messiahship, we're supposed to be messiahs for our tribes. We're supposed to all help others, help save them, And how does this relate to, like, how did this happen? You know, we had a lot of, you know, from what I hear, the statistics, we've had hundreds of Travel Messiah victors in America. Let's give a round of applause. You know? But through, I go on the tribe call and I listen to these Travel Messiahs. Every time it's some sort of spiritual experience or some sort of, you know, revelation that, you know, puts them on the path to their mission. And, you know, when they're blessing people, you know, whether it's, you know, they're knocking on people's doors or they have like a table set up, like there's always some sort of spiritual experience every time. And I think, I know I've always sometimes forgotten that. You know, when I've thought of my family's travel messiahship, I've always, and studying it, you know, I've sometimes forgot, like, the spiritual aspect. Because if we just look at the physical aspect, then it's like, how are people, you know, how are people gonna, like, just suddenly, like, accept, like, what I'm saying? Like, how are they gonna believe us? Like, what if they think we're a cult or something like that, you know? But that's only the human understanding. The spiritual understanding is, wow, you know, I don't know what it is, but this seems authentic. This seems real. This seems like something that can change my life. And it's not, you know, an intellectual process. It's just a realization that is carried out, you know, without thinking fully. You know, and that's how we contributed to the miracle of the 2020 Providence. And it's also a miracle because just 2 years ago, there were like very few Travel Messiah victors. I think it was like 4 or something. How did we get from 4 to hundreds in 2 years when we had 5 years to get to 4? Mathematically speaking, we were dead in the water. Statistically speaking, we were dead in the water. But what happened? You know, this is just my theory. But we had Chumpeong come to America in 2018. And the purpose was to awaken the spirit of America, to, you know, raise up spirit world, right? Like to ask spirits, ask our ancestors for their help, you know? And at the time, I mean, like, it was great and all, but I wasn't thinking like, you know, this is the spark that will, you know, this is a Star Wars quote, that will light the fire and burn the First Order down. That's a Star Wars quote. But, you know, I didn't think that would be the spark that would, you know, because I mean, you know, sure, we're doing like, you know, ancestor celebration and all that, but like, you know, when we leave, you know, we go back to our normal lives and, you know, we keep trying to, you know, bless couples or whatever. But no, in the past 2 years, we've soared from 4 to hundreds. Is that just human effort alone? I don't think so. I don't think that's just human effort alone. How can it be? Math says otherwise. Literally, it says otherwise. Math states it is a miracle that we went from 4 to hundreds in 2 years, when in 5 years we went from 0 to 4. Math states that's a miracle. And from the study of principle and from just, yeah, it is a miracle that we did this. You know. But in order for this miracle to have come about, you know, we have our human portion of responsibility. It's not just, it's 95% and then our 5%. What was it? You know, for all of us, I think it is to accept spirit world. Feel, not just accept, but feel it. Feel it within our hearts. Feel it, you know, as we do these activities. Because when I listen to testimonies of travel messiahs, that's what happened to them. They had a sudden, you know, feeling of spirit world and not just an intellectual accepting of it. You know, they really felt it. And that's what, you know, propelled them to victory. You know, and for me, that was my problem. Just an intellectual understanding of spirit world. Not an actual feeling of spirit world. I'm getting a little vulnerable here. I'm an intellectual guy. I like principle a lot because the intellectual side, how it makes, history, makes sense, finally, a purpose, finally, why does it repeat itself? Or oh yeah, that's what the Bible means when, or something or another. Of course the fall is not, a literal eating of the fruit. Of course, intellectually, that all makes sense. It's stimulating. But what about the artistic aspect, the spiritual aspect? For me, that's been a little challenging in my life of faith. That's kind of my area of growth. In a lot of workshops, my goal is to artistically feel God and artistically feel true parents. That's kind of been my goal the past few years at workshops. And, I've had little tidbits of success, but I still, going into this trip in Korea, I still didn't fully feel that. And what kind of made it challenging going into Korea was, there's a person, going to remain anonymous, I'm not going to, but who is part of a group that's considered a cult, okay? And, I had interactions with the person every day, and, and me and my friends would, we were we would research this person's group, and then we would find, oh my gosh, this is a little weird, it fits the definition of cult, in its actual sense. But that led to me, inevitably, me being kind of immersed in this kind of, research a little, start to draw comparisons. Us as the unification movement have sometimes the label of being considered a cult. Certainly back in the early days. But even still now, that label is still kind of on the internet. It's gotten better, but that label is still on the internet that, we are a cult. Wikipedia has gotten better, I think, a little better. But YouTube, on the other hand, has not gotten better. If you look us up, you will find videos about how I left the unification cult or something or another. And so that stigma is still, it's still there. Obviously way better than before, where you had people attacking Unification Church members because they were followers of Reverend Moon. That doesn't happen anymore, but you still have that stigma. And I kept drawing comparisons. I kept drawing this is they have to pay this money to advance to this level or whatever. Well, what about us? We have to pay money to liberate our ancestors. Or what is this donation of gratitude? Is it really an option? Come on, guys. For we had the Chumbo holy wine ceremony. It was a special grace from true parents, allowing us to cleanse our sins, and we had to do various conditions. That was the first day of my visit in Korea. That was the first day. The first day was doing these various conditions, and they were you had to pray at the 5 trees. There's 5 trees in Cheonpyeong. I am not going to try to list them all because I probably will forget at least one of them, but one of them, the tree of blessing, I believe, is on the top of a mountain, and you kind of have to climb it. And, so we had to pray at the 5 trees. We had to do a 120 bow condition. I saw someone's face kind of looked a little shocked there. Yes, 120 bow condition. Because, and then we had to do a resolution paper, saying what we've, kind of repenting for what we've done in the past, but resolving to do anew, and then a donation of some kind relating to the number 13. It could be, 13 cents, $1.30, $13, etc., but something related to number 13. Those were the conditions to receive this special grace from true parents, this Chumbo holy wine ceremony, which we partook in the next day. And this was related to also tribal messiahship, because tribal messiah victors were labeled Chumbo couples, heavenly treasures. They completed their mission, Obviously, of course, I'm sure they're all, still try to, grow their tribe and all that. They completed their responsibility, these Chumbo couples. And, doing this condition, I was struggling. I was like, this donation of gratitude, like, what, like, really? Like, come on now. This is a little weird or whatever. Like, this donation, that donation, the victory fund, your parents' birthday, yada, 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 the fee for this, the fee for that, have to bless these ancestors. Oh, that's a few $100, blah, blah, blah. And then I was talking to some of my friends, and I was like, how, all right, let's be real about this. Mathematically speaking, how in the world are some blessed families going to be able to to bless all these ancestors, 5,000 for the victory fund, donation of gratitude, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Like, how is this possible? And I came to the conclusion, it's not possible. We have to choose. Because, for a lot of us, I think my family included, I don't think we can do all of those. I do not think we can do that. And I'm sure many of us cannot. So I was struggling with this, going into the 3 days of events. The first event was the Foundation Day anniversary and the proclamation of substantial Chanoguk, Vision 2020 as a success. We had that event. The next day was the blessing. I know that it looked beautiful here. I will say, although, Chunshim World Peace Center is bigger and has more room for decorations, I think Boston Church may have come on their level. I think so. From the pictures Aunt Catherine showed me, it was so beautiful here. I saw the picture, I was like, whoa! And the video too, it was just amazing. But in Korea was also amazing too. They had this touching moment in the transition between, after they were blessed, after the blessings were proclaimed, transitioning into the Hyeojung Cultural Festival for entertainment. They had a transition period, and they would show on the Megatron certain couples' faces, and they were dance if you're on the screen. And a lot of older people actually danced. The young people did not dance. They did not. And Dr. Yoon was like, all right, everyone who danced, you're going to receive a special gift. And he was like, I don't know how we're going to find out who you are, but, we'll find out somehow. And then the final day was the victory celebration, where Dr. Yoon gave his report on, I kind of summed it up in a few minutes, I think, of what happened, what led up to the World Summit, the challenges. Then Chu Mother spoke for a little bit, and then there was some more entertainment. But before that, I was struggling, because I wanted to be part of the victory. That was one of my purposes coming to Korea, to be part of those events. My presence being an offering to God and to parents. Making the events a success. But I was struggling with this. I was struggling because it was only a human understanding. It was only math. The donation stuff, it was only math to me. And of course, the math is not irrelevant. It is, internal and external are both important. So the math is important, But I was listening to a talk from President Lee Gi-sung. He's the head of Korea, the Korean movement of FFWPU. He was giving a talk, and he said, which kind of reminded me of the reality of Spirit World, he said, we are living, and this is transcribed from my chicken scratch, by the way, so this is what I got to make out of it. So yeah. I think it's official, but the dots, or whatever those, ellipses, those are just, that means that, I could read it and then I couldn't. But anyways, this is accurate though, I think, from the translation. So it's not official, but we are living in an era to see spiritually. If you think you can work just by yourself, empty yourself. And so hence Spirit World can work with you. True Father. He's saying only focus on true parents for works. So he kind of reminded me through this, part of his speech that, we are in an era where Spirit World is a reality for us. It is working. It can work through us. And he said something, I think, I may have said this in my first sermon, actually, that, Chumother's quote about starting from the 0 point. And he's saying something similar, empty yourself. Empty yourself of, all your, just human-centered thoughts. And allow spirit world to work. And this is what I heard from testimonies of travel messiahs. Or from anyone else doing some kind of mission. Or, like from GPA participants, in their, GPA also blessed some people too. Like from GPA's various mission, from their mission trips or whatever. They had to let spirit world work. They had to kind of empty themselves in order to feel spirit world. And here's a nice little image of spirit world I found on Google. But we do want to see that. But how do we see it? So we have, the theory. Okay, so we know human effort it can't be the end-all be-all, it doesn't lead to success. It can't just be us, it has to be spirit world. Okay, and by, accepting and feeling spirit world, we were able to contribute with our portion of responsibility and also be able to, likewise with, Chumother and the world leaders, create a miracle, both on the local level, national, and global level, to have victory. We know the theory, okay, especially for our portion of responsibility. But how do we actually do this? How do we feel spirit world? How do we practically do it? Because I've heard all my life that, spirit world does this and that. And, if you just pray, you will be able to perceive something or another. I've heard that a lot. But is it really simple as prayer? It is prayer, but it's more than that. Each person is a unique expression of God. Each person is a unique individual. Each person interacts and feels and sees the physical world differently. We all have our own views about the physical world. We all see things through a different lens. We all have a different experience in the physical world. Likewise, not all of us are going to feel spirit world the same. And my expectation always was, all right, I'll feel spirit world, I'll feel God when I cry. I'm going to feel spirit when I have a deep prayer and I'm in tears praying. That's when I know I'll feel it. True Father often talked about the importance of shedding tears during prayer. That is true. But it's not a end-all be-all to feel spirit world. And so what I did is, the day after the victory celebration, the morning was the pilgrimage portion. In the pilgrimage, we visited the Chumbo Wan, the museum, and also the genealogy center, where travel messiahs are you can see them. The accomplishments are made public. And then we went to the Chonjanggun, the palace, and then the next day we went to Chumpadong, the old headquarters church, and then we also went to the Korean Traditional Palace. But in the morning we visited the Chumboan. But I had a really urgent need to pray. I felt distracted, because there's friends there and all that. I felt because one of my other goals of going to Korea was to experience God, the same goal as every workshop and etc. But I felt like I hadn't taken that initiative yet. Something was calling to me. It was like, Luke, you want to feel God, you want to feel spirit world, but you're not actually taking initiative, So I really felt that. So I went into the prayer hall and began to pray. And that was a challenge because in the prayer hall were GPA. And I know GPA. Sam was there. He was doing his 120 bows. And before he started, I was praying and then I saw him walk in and I was like, oh, I want to say hi. Before he starts his bows. But I had to eliminate distractions. I had to empty myself. Empty myself of, wanting to see others, empty myself of like these intellectual thoughts of like, oh, this, if I'm going to pray, next up, maybe I'll feel something, like kind of like the intellectual theory behind it. I had to let all that go. I had to empty myself. I had to only focus on praying. I had to only focus. And when I did, what happened? I got, some realizations about my life. And so I journaled. And instead of thinking about the realization as I'm writing, I just wrote. I did not think. Myself was emptied. So then another realization came, and I just wrote it. I didn't think at all. I just wrote it. And then something inside me said, just that $1 bill in your wallet, just put it in the box. Like, don't even use an envelope, just put it in the box. And I didn't think about that either. I just put it in the box. I just did it. And then I left the prayer hall, and also I did get a big revelation from God as well after that, by just journaling, writing down, by praying, by just doing what comes to me. That's spirit world. That was spirit. I left there thinking that was a spiritual experience. I didn't cry. I didn't leave there in tears or sniffling, but I had a spiritual experience that was unique to me. And through that, I got ideas and motivations to do stuff I wouldn't have done before. I realized I was able to understand why, there's all these, donations and stuff like that. That didn't bother me anymore. Those cult comparisons, which you could make a case for intellectually, were completely blown out of the water because it wasn't just human understanding. And I did that by experimenting. What I did in the prayer hall was an experiment for me to see how I feel spirit world. And my call to action for you guys today, I've had a few, develop the able heart, do your anger workout. Those were my past 2 sermons. But my call to action for you guys today is to experiment on how you feel spirit world. Empty yourself, go in a room by yourself, empty yourself, eliminate distractions, start praying, and then just do what comes to you. Do what comes to you, and you will have a spiritual experience. And also, don't just try out praying. Maybe it's meditating. I found meditating is not how I connect to spirit world. I've meditated several times, and I've just found it completely boring. And maybe it's just because I have a lack of patience or focus, but I'm getting the sense as, I develop like how I feel spirit world, that's not for me. But maybe it's for some of you guys. Or maybe it's, just journaling. Maybe journaling's how you get the spiritual experience, But whatever it is, experiment with it without distractions, because distractions lead to human thoughts of, oh, this is weird. Donating just this $1, not even in an envelope. How's this going to look to all these members, who are graciously preparing the envelope and all that? Now, how's this going to look to them? This is going to look weird, oh, this stupid teenager, he's so disrespectful. But no. I did what came to me without the distractions of others, and so I didn't have any judgmental thoughts. And when you don't have judgmental thoughts, that's how you can be free to experiment of how you feel spirit world. So try that at home, I haven't had time, unfortunately, because I've had to make up a ton of work. But this school vacation, I am going to, experiment, see, how else do I feel spirit world, Maybe I'll try meditating again. But, yeah. That's kind of what I gained through this trip in Korea. And I'm so grateful once again to the anonymous person who did sponsor me. Whoever you are, thank you so much. Because I was able to touch spirit world in Korea. I was able to touch spirit world. I felt it. And, by continuing to, have this feeling of spirit world through our own, experimentation of how it works through our lives, I believe that I know I can bring more victory to God, and I know we all can bring more victory to God, and I know we can build this heavenly world one step at a time. Do you think we can do this?
Yes.
Are you guys going to experiment and see how you feel spirit world?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Are we going to experiment?
Yes.
All right. That felt good. Now I feel like I can pray. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Parent, good morning. Here today in the Boston church, still remnants from the blessing ceremony. I'm just so grateful that I was able to have a spiritual experience with you, God, in Champyeong, in the prayer hall. I'm so happy that, we've had all these Child Messiah victors. I'm so happy that as a local level, we've really done so much this past 2019. We've done so much, God. I really am excited to see how we grow locally. And I pray that you can be involved in this process, that, if there's something you want to happen, that we can feel that and hear you, and that we can just act without distractions or just human understanding, God. Because that's what limited me from, feeling you, God. It was just intellect, human understanding. And I repent for that, but, I pray that I can continue to do my part in my relationship with you, God, and pray that we can all do our part here, and that, that nationally as well, we can continue to bring victory, and globally as well. We have 9 leaders on Chuma's side, 9 leaders of countries, and I pray that it can be more. So thank you. I offer this up and report this and pray this in my name, Luke Jean, the Jean family, appointing a Central West family. Adieu. Thank you, everyone, for listening.